All right, finally, this is part 3 of the geometric portrait in the style of Anthony Gerace. This is the fun part. So if I go back to my image here, I've got my grid all finished up. It's all on layer 3. If I turn that off, you'll see it go off and on. And I'm going to turn off Photoshop's grid at this point because I don't think we really need it. If we do, we'll turn it back on. Okay, so again, if you need to adjust the size of your stroke here, so if you want the lines to be thicker or thinner or even change the color of them, you could try that. But I'm going to leave mine as is, and I'm going to choose the marquee tool, not the one we've been using, but the rectangular marquee. And also, again, I want my feather to be set to 0 pixels. Okay, I'm going to go to my layer 1, which is where I have the model cut out and on a checkered background. I'm going to add a layer mask. You guys know about layer masks. When we paint something black on a layer mask, it gets hidden. Well, painting is kind of messy, so we're going to use the marquee tool to do our painting. We're going to make a selection and then fill it with black. So I'm going to quick over here switch my color to black. Okay, so you decide as the artist here what part of the picture is going to get removed. So it probably has something to do with what kind of statement you're making. So you decide that beforehand, and then at this point, you're going to start making squares and filling them with black. And by filling them with black, again, they get hidden. So for this model, I'm going to kind of remove the top portion of her face. So I'm going to just start here at the top, and I'm going to draw a rectangular marquee selection. And you know what? It looks like without my grid on, I'm going to have to be really, really careful. So I'm going to Control D, deselect that, and I'm going to turn my grid back on. Let's try this again. This time, hopefully, Photoshop snaps to the grid, and that is a much nicer selection. Look how perfect that is. Okay, again, I want to fill this. We've been doing a lot of filling, so Shift F5 again. But this time, I don't want to fill it with white because my layer mask is all white already. I want to fill it with black. And say OK. Now, if you know there are big chunks that you're going to be removing, you can draw bigger boxes. But just to keep it easier to control, I'm going to do this step by step. So the next box I know I want to get rid of is this top portion of her head here. And I'm going to Shift F5, fill it with black. And you'll see on my layer mask thumbnail here, I'm starting to get some black here. That's hiding the picture of Jordan. Control D. I'm going to do a box here. Shift F5. And this is where you get to be creative and decide what parts are going to stay and go. For example, this tiny little bit of her hair here. Do I want to keep it or not? And if I decide later on that I want to bring something back, like let's say I decide I want this back, I can fill it with white. So I'm going to keep going here, drawing these marquee boxes, filling them with black. And this is the creative part. So you decide when to stop and how much to take away. And is it going to be all in one chunk? Actually, now that I look at it, I kind of don't like these pieces of hair that are floating around here. So I can fit 2 of them in one marquee. So I'm going to fill that with black. And I don't like this piece over here either. Kind of like this little step, like stair pattern here. So I'm going to get rid of this piece then. Doing this little step down, step down, step down. And I could leave it at that, but it kind of looks very similar to the original portrait. So maybe I want to come in and take another piece away from the middle of it. You decide. You're the photographer. You're the artist here. Decide what you're going to remove and make it your own, because Anthony Gerace does this with his collages and he's our inspiration, but we don't want to copy him. We want to make ours our own. So don't look at one of his and then decide that that's how you're going to do it. We just used his grid and his removal of chunks as our inspiration, and we're going to take it from there. When you're totally finished, it's nice to turn off the grid so that you can see the finished product and decide. You can make lots of changes at this point. Maybe I decided this color is blending with her skin too much, so I want to make it something else. So you can come in and change it up. And you can also change your texture. Maybe it's too intense. So at this point, you just kind of play around with it until it looks the way that you want.